Now it's recording.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode 3 of the Living by the Rule podcast. And my wonderful husband is joining Athea and myself today.
Hi.
For all of like 2 minutes. Happy anniversary, babe.
Happy anniversary, boo.
I love you.
Love you too.
I appreciate your support.
I'm very excited for you.
And you coming along on this very interesting journey with me.
Yep. We're gonna build a studio.
We are gonna build a studio because like right now you're like downstairs and I'm upstairs and it's just weird. The lighting is off. And yes, Athea has been sidelined on our, I don't even know what's the right word to say. She has been party to our silliness for the past few minutes. So
I think it's great. I think it's great. And I mean, look, we have Tim for like all of 5 minutes. So like, I'm very curious to ask, since this is your guys' anniversary. I mean, first of all, how long have you been married?
3 years.
Good answer, babe.
How long have you guys been together?
10 years.
Okay.
He's very good at sales, clearly.
Yeah. So I'm just really curious. I mean, look, this is let's take this as an opportunity, because I'm sure anyone who's been in a relationship, want to get into a relationship. You guys have been together for 10 years, married for 3. Give one sort of, I guess you'd say, rule or kind of motto or mantra that you follow in your marriage.
Well, I've been divorced, so you learn a lot from a difficult relationship. And I think what I learned was that you have to really stay very tight with your partner. And obviously that's not easy to do every single day. So when you have a day where you don't feel tight with your partner, you have to do something very intentional to get back to being tight with your partner. And so that's sort of what I focus on. And, you know, some days you're a little bit loose and other days you're very loose. And the looser I am with my partner, the more urgent it is that I do something intentional to get back to being tight with my partner. I think that's probably that's for me. But you just have to really, really be conscious of when you're drifting away from your partner. And what I learned from my prior relationship was that you got to do something quickly and intentionally to fix that. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Can I add a little bit of language to that? So when you say like tight and loose, is it fair to sort of say like to be emotionally close and like connected? So like you could be physically apart like all day, but if you're not feeling emotionally connected to your partner, right, that's then you're not tight.
That's right.
Loose, right. Okay. So we're talking about emotional connection. Okay. I just want to give it a name.
Yeah, no, that's much better than tight and loose, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and I totally understand what you're saying, and I completely agree.
I would say mine is pick a partner that has the qualities that you respect, and then pause. I learned this from my Kabbalah teacher. Pause, what an opportunity. So when there are things that are challenging, you just pause. Thank you for this opportunity to not be reactive. And I use it from time to time. I love my husband, though. He's a great partner, so I don't have to do it that much. But yeah, there are those, there's always going to be things that happen that make you kind of have to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And then when you respect them, you can breathe through it. and keep going. So, oh, pause. And laughter, right? I think that's the our big thing. Tim does a really good job of keeping me laughing. So,
Oh,
um,
that's great.
yes. So, okay, babe. We'll let you go now. I
Happy anniversary.
happy anniversary to you too. I appreciate you hopping on for a moment, and we will catch up in a little bit.
Okay. Love you.
Bye. Love you.
Hi, it was nice to meet you. That's great.
Oh boy. Indeed. All right. So,
Yeah. So let's talk about relationships then.
yes.
Yeah.
So as a wellness coach, I'm sure you get lots of questions from people about relationships and kind of the struggles and just trying to find your person. I consider myself to be extremely fortunate that I was able to find him, but he was like I had never been married before, and I was a mature bride, as they say. So I had gone through several iterations of relationships before we actually met. So I always like to say that those crazy relationships had to happen so that I would be able to recognize when a good relationship came about. And I did. I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time after my relationship prior to meeting Tim ended to just spend some time getting to know me again. I took like a 2 year, started as a 1 year, turned into like a 2 year dating hiatus, just trying to get back reconnected with who I am. And like I said, the things, the qualities in a person and someone that I wanted to be with that I would respect. So what do you tell what do you tell people that come to you that are, you know, sad or angry or all sorts of different emotions because they haven't found that significant other in their life?
Oh, um, it's interesting. I usually don't get that very much. Like,
Really?
yeah, I it's not very often that I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened, it has, but what I mostly get are people who are in relationships or, you know, starting new relationships, thinking about ending relationships, or in the throes of relationships, and don't know how to navigate them or are unsure what to do. Um, there are, I guess, a few people that I've worked with over the years who have had sort of, I guess, doubt or, fear that they're not going to find somebody. And even those people have since found somebody. So what I say is sort of, in that regard, I just sort of say, like, hey, it will happen. Like, you'll meet someone when you're supposed to meet someone. And I mean, because there's lots of people out there, right? There's lots of people, and part of it is you kind of have to put yourself out there a little bit, um, uh, but be open to opportunity, right? And so sometimes, this is like, I think probably like a really bad comparison or like an analogy, but sometimes we can have unrealistic expectations, right? Of what we think we want, and then those expectations create a very rigid profile or a very small like box or window of what is accessible, and it really reduces our opportunities, right, to connect or to be with someone, and also you don't actually know someone until you get to know them. And so if you are so quick to pass up on someone or judge someone based on maybe how they look or something that they say, right, without giving a person a fair chance, you're just reducing your opportunities. And so I've always said, sort of, every time you meet someone, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get to know someone. It's an opportunity to figure out, like, hey, you might like this person, or you might be able to be friends with this person. Because sometimes, just because you're looking for like the one, as we say, sort of this person to spend your life with, right? Along the way, you might meet people that you spend your life with that might not be the one, but you come across people that you end up getting to share your life with. And so, again, I think it goes back to all the things that we've talked about in the first and the second session. It's really around just that mindset and how you're going to look at this and how you set yourself up and how you're perceiving, what's happening.
Yeah, I know for me it was like I say, it took me some time, and I had a list, but I read this book. So in the 2 years that I was doing my dating hiatus, I read this book called Date Like a Man to Get the Man You Want, and it was by Maria Moore. And in that book, she talks about dating just for fun,
Mm-hmm.
and put some thought to the things that you're, are on your list, the things that are important, and then spend some time thinking about why those things are important.
Yeah.
Then just going out and having fun. I think the premise of the book was, men date for fun and women date for husbands. And so,
I feel like there's been quite a shift in that. I think that was true probably a few decades ago, several decades ago, in fact. But I think there's been a big shift in that. I think there are a lot more women today and in the last, like, probably 10 to 15 years that have been dating for fun. It's become more socially acceptable for women to date for fun. I think there's such a stigma around, like, the idea of, like, oh, a woman can't date for fun, just sort of like it's not okay for a woman to have casual sex, right? Like, we know where this is going, and where it's been, and what that has been portrayed.
I think I would definitely say that the tides have changed on that one, because
yes, yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like, woo, they're like,
yeah.
Off. Keep it loosely. No, just
but I think that's appropriate. So I mean, like, I didn't date a lot. I had a really, like, I had a high school sweetheart, and that turned out, and that just ended really poorly, and lots of hurt and lots of pain. And then I made the decision to sort of just probably when I consciously made the decision to focus on myself, and then I subconsciously made the decision that I didn't want to be hurt again. So I went into the space of, like, I am just going to have fun and focus on me. I was like 26 years old and just made the decision to move to New York. And so I did do that. I focused on me. I had a great time. I focused on my career. And it was interesting because at a certain point, I got tired of, like, having fun, got tired of going on dates, and sort of kept saying, I really want to be in a relationship. I really want to be in a relationship now. I want this to happen now. And I mean, I was trying to date. I was on dating apps, and just all the ways that you meet people. I was pretty open to that. But I had to, like, I was sort of like had to take a step back because I kept inadvertently choosing people that were not available, that like didn't want to have commitment. And so then I had to actually take a look at myself and really have a very hard, like long look at myself to say, oh, just because I'm saying I want to be in a relationship, do I actually want to be in a relationship? Am I really ready for this? And like, do I actually, am I open to the idea of getting hurt again? Because that's what this comes down to, right? When you make the decision to jump into a relationship or get into a relationship, there's a level of vulnerability and it's a risk, because it's a risk. There's a chance that you're gonna get hurt. There's a chance that you can hurt somebody and that person's gonna hurt you, not necessarily intentionally, but it happens, right? Because when you get into an intimate relationship, right? You guys, what your husband said about like being emotionally connected, there needs to be an emotional connection, and it's probably one of the deepest emotional connections that we have. But you have to be willing to risk the hurt and the pain in order to receive that level of connection. And so I thought I was ready, but then I was like, oh wait, but I guess I'm really not ready. And so then I had to do things sort of like mentally talk about this to myself, really mentally prepare myself for this idea that like, if you open yourself up again, like there's a chance you could get hurt. Is that a risk you're willing to take?
Right.
And I don't know that people have that conversation with themselves enough.
Yeah, I would say, well, I had a very different experience. I think my girlfriends I had like one of my girlfriends tell me once, she was like, yeah, Nicole, you always wanted the kids more than you wanted the relationships. And so, I have 3 daughters, but 3 very different relationships. And they happened at, 3 very distinct time periods in my life. And but very similar to what you said, I had a therapist, my first therapist, that told me like, okay, so as the daughter of someone who doesn't have a relationship with their father, that you're kind of a textbook case of someone who's like attracted to people who aren't available. And whether that was technically available or emotionally available, it was like I ended up in these relationships with people. And I've gotten to a point now where it's like I'm very thankful. Like I've gotten on the other side of it. So I can say that I'm grateful for the relationships that I had. Because again, like I said before, it's like that going through that and dealing with them is what helped me to really form in my mind, like, what was it that I really wanted and who was I going to be able to be with? And of course, I wouldn't have my daughters, which, are probably the greatest loves of my life, if it hadn't been for those relationships. So it's like, I let go a long time ago, trying to figure out my ex's issues.
Oh yeah,
y'all are on your own journey, so
yeah,
thank you for your presence in my life, but you're on your own journey, and so I gotta go do what's making Nicole happy.
Right. Because that's about you, right? So the choices that you made and the people that you chose them for a reason. Again, whether it was conscious or subconscious, right? There's a reason for that, and maybe consciously you thought that was the actual reason, and it might have very well been subconsciously something else. And so that's sort of sometimes where we and I think this goes to what you said, which is you said sort of being a thing for you in your relationship with your husband that is that has really helped you through sort of the pause, taking the pause, right? The stop, and being intentional and mindful about your reaction, right? And so that means there's intentionality there. You're really trying to be thoughtful about that. So in the vein of sort of the mindset and being mindful, but also that ability to regulate. And because relationships, especially intimate ones, are so emotional, it can be really hard to regulate yourself in the moment and not react and not feel the need to defend and protect. And that is one of the hardest things to do, frankly, is to stop yourself and to whatever you're feeling. And when it comes from, or there is an emotional reaction as a result of the dynamic between you and your partner, it's like 1,000 times more intense than, say, a reaction with maybe like a family member or a friend, because there's such an intimacy there, right? There's such a level of vulnerability that it's far more intense. And so it can sometimes be harder to have a pause. That's the thing that I struggle with, that I am working on constantly in my relationship, is that that moment of self-regulation, of being able to take that pause, so that, because I don't intentionally want to hurt my partner or say something that's hurtful or do something, right? But what's happening to me is I'm trying to defend and protect, right? Defend and protect what's happening to me. And it's not logical. Like, it's instinctual. It's animalistic almost, in the sense of like, my brain is responding, my body is responding to this need to defend and protect, but I don't actually need to defend and protect myself from my emotions. I really need to take a pause and try to understand them and figure out what is happening here. Why do I have this strong feeling? What is going on here? Because at the end of the day, I love my husband. I certainly don't want to hurt him or say things that are hurtful or be mean. But this happens. This is the dynamic. This is often the pattern of interaction for people when they're in a relationship. It's because it's how we're hardwired.
Yeah. Now I have an alter ego named Shaniqua. My mom that was supposed to be my original name before my aunt told her that she had to go back and rethink that. She was gonna name me Shaniqua. And so I paused to try and keep, I wouldn't say Shaniqua tamped down, but yeah, the pause to keep Shaniqua tamped down, because when she comes out, yes, she can say some things that can hurt really, really bad. And like you say, I really never want to do anything intentionally to hurt my husband, because I love him. So in that regard, and I guess that goes back to kind of what we talked about before, which is, mastering your mindset. Understand, like, the first part of being able to master your mindset is really just knowing yourself and accepting you for who you are. And, it's like, I know that I have there's that side of me that can come out. And I try so hard. I do. I try. I put forth the effort to, and it's not like being inauthentic or anything like that. Like, it is part of who I am, but I also know that that is a part of me that is, like you say, defend and protect, and when you get into that mode, you can lash out at the people that you care about the most. And I never want to, I try really hard, I'll say, to not have that happen, because I care about, I care about my husband, I care about my family, and sometimes when you're in the heat of that moment, it is very easy to, flip the switch and take the gloves off and let it rip.
Yeah.
And then you feel bad about it. It's like, like,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say that, but then at that point you can't really take it back. So yeah, I do. And it's a practice.
is.
And yeah, it was Eitan Yardeni that said, pause, what a pleasure. Thanks for
Mhm.
this opportunity to not be reactive. And
Yeah.
there are times when I'm just tootling along and I'm just saying that to myself, like, yep, thank you for this opportunity. I'm breathing through it. And, usually you see it for what it is and let it go, which is great. So yeah, it's an invaluable lesson to learn. And I would say, I think the other part of it too is it's like I know what the tone of my relationship and household I want, right? Like I want us to be calm. I like for my house to feel calm and peaceful. And so I put forth the effort in order to try and make sure that's happening. And it is, it's something that's important. And if it's something that's important to you, then you put forth the effort in order to make sure that it happens that way. And it's not to say, it doesn't happen like that 100% all the time. Nobody's perfect, but with me trying to set that tone and then him being, aware and responsive and, us just being able to really communicate well, like, that's how we've made it 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a level of understanding in your guys' priorities. So wanting the same thing and sort of being respectful of what the other person wants is a huge part of that, right? And that does come from communication. And, I think that's the other thing that is often very challenging for people in relationships, any relationships now, whether this is like an intimate relationship, your personal relationship, workships, friendships, family ships, whatever, is communication. It's tied directly to, that ability to stop and pause, to think, to be intentional. And it's something that, again, it's a muscle. You have to flex it. You have to practice it. You have to work at it.
Yeah.
And someone can be a great communicator, let's say, with their family or at work, and then that they don't have that level of communication, or that their communication muscle in their intimate relationship is very weak, right? And that could be a myriad of reasons. It can be because maybe they have limited experience in an intimate relationship, or it could be maybe they've had intimate relationships where they've been with people who are not very communicative, and it's not something that there was space to practice, right? But it's such a vital part that any relationship you get into, for the relationship to be healthy and be able to maintain a level of healthiness, communication is necessary.
Yeah. It was funny. I was talking with a friend of mine, and I was telling her, because she was expressing that she wasn't happy with like a guy that she's dating, and he texted her a question, and then she was like, yeah, okay, well, why don't we just talk about it? And he like basically was like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. And I was like, maybe, he would have been more comfortable with having that exchange. Like, I know a lot of people like don't like to text, right? Or because there is the possibility of, people reading into the tone of a text without having the ability to hear what the intonations and all that stuff that go into it. But I told her it was actually funny for me and Tim, like for me on my list of things that were important, like having good grammar like that meant a lot to me, like for whatever reason. Like I use that as my gauge of, okay, are you smart or are you not? Because if I look at your profile and it's like all one giant run-on sentence, no punctuation, everything in all lower caps is like, okay, we're not going to get along. So it's like, it made my like swiping left and right going through profiles a lot simpler, because I knew that was something that was important to me. So when I read his profile, and it was like a well-written like dissertation with, punctuation,
period,
periods, like thoughts and paragraphs, like very solid. And I was impressed by that. And so when we first started dating, we agreed that texting was okay. Like so we'd send like these crazy long texts to each other. But the reason why I liked that is because it gave me the opportunity to think about what I was sending, right? Like I had time.
There's a built-in boundary. There's a built-in boundary because the conversation is, because it's not in person, there is the ability for there to be a delayed response. And I think that texting is completely okay as long as there's an understanding of sort of what that looks like. And for some, like, depending on what the conversation is or the topic and how emotionally charged someone can become, texting might be the most appropriate way to sort of begin the conversation or get out what you need to say, so that you're intentional about what you're saying and you're not necessarily responding with the emotions, right? So yes, and to this friend of yours, like the person's response about like, well, I don't want to talk about this in person, like maybe it'll be a few weeks, right? Maybe a few weeks. Now, obviously we don't know what the topic was, but at the end of the day, the fact that this individual was able to articulate and say, I don't actually feel comfortable right now having this conversation in person, is a form of communication. And they're expressing themselves and saying, I'm actually not comfortable doing that right now. That's okay. The person is allowed to say that, right? And because that's the whole point. Like the whole point of communication is to be able to be your authentic self, to say, right, what you're thinking and what you're feeling, to be able to recognize, and hopefully having the person on the other end, there being space to be able to practice empathy and understanding, right, and sort of hear what you are saying, and to do what we call actively listen. Let me actively listen to what you're saying, right, and not just respond and not just react, because that's often what happens, because both people are trying to either express themselves or want to be heard. And so then what ends up happening is there's no active listening and there's no space to actually be heard or to be understood.
Yeah, I think the other part of that, though, that's key, that goes into communication, is also has to be a level of trust. Because that was like another big thing for me. It was like, oh, you have got to be like, honesty was like number one on my list of things that were, my priorities. And if that, it's hard, like I was one of those people who's like, okay, I will trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fortunate that, Tim never gave me a reason not to trust what he was saying was true. And so it did give a level of comfort with, us interacting that way, because I did have, like, there hadn't been any sort of violations of trust. I get it. That's Tim. My exes, completely different ballgame. Like, and I think that just kind of comes along with your relationship. It was so funny because, like, I kept telling him like, okay, I don't believe that I'll get to see the real you until we've been together at least 6 months. Like everybody can stay on their best behavior for the first 6 months.
Oh yeah.
See what you're doing.
That's what you said to Tim?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the honeymoon phase. When you meet someone and everything is wonderful and oh, it's all bliss and sunshine and rainbows and that's what it's supposed to be. And like the hope is that for however long the relationship lasts, even though it's not going to always be joy and sunshine and rainbows, the hope is that there's still, maybe not all the time because that's just not realistic, but the hope is that there is, right? That there are lots of moments of joy and sunshine and rainbows, just sprinkled, just like there's moments of sadness and hurt and pain. And in that trust, right? It's trust that your partner is going to be there for you. Trust that you will be there for them, that you can show up for each other, that there is a level of understanding and the ability to really know that like, hey, my person loves me. Even if they do hurt my feelings, it's not intentional.
Yeah.
Right? And trust and be able to trust that even though there is the hurt or they did something or behaved in a way that was hurtful, that it's not intentional.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was like, okay, you're great right now. Shaniqua was like, okay, you're great right now, but let's see what you're doing in 6 months. And then at 6 months, like, wow, okay, you're still being awesome. It's like, okay, well, let's see what you do in 9 months. We'll give you 9 months. And then it's like, oh, okay, you made it 9 months. All right, well, let's see 12 months. And then it's like, okay, fine. And it's like, all right, fine. And so I put the proverbial like line in the sand because he did. He told me on our very first date, he like said to me, like, look, I need to know exactly what it is that you're looking for. Because if I'm being honest, I just got out of a 21-year marriage and I'm not in any big hurry to get into another really serious relationship. And at first I was kind of like, what? And then it was like, I appreciate you like being honest and like laying that out there and allowing me to make the decision as to whether or not I wanted to deal with that or not. And so, he established that from our very first date. And yeah, and then he's just, he's in sales. And so he was able to like sell me on, on the 7 years that we were together before we got married. I told him, I was like, look, 5 years, I'm not going to be the 5-year girlfriend. So something has got to happen before the 5 years. And he literally, we got engaged at like 4 years, 362 days. So just like, yeah. It was like, I laid it out there and I did it. So it's like, all right, fine. I can't, it's like, good on you. And I had girlfriends that were like, well, what are you going to do if he doesn't propose? And at that point, I was like, nothing, because I love him and, whatever. If he's not ready, that's fine. But yeah. And then he convinced me to wait like another 2 years to actually get married. So, he's very good at what he does. But, it's funny as we celebrate our 3rd anniversary, like making the decision to go out with him and continue the relationship has been like one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Like it has been magical. It's been a magical 10 years, and I'm very appreciative of him and the universe for sending him my way. So any final thoughts on relationships and
yeah, so I've been married, it'll be 8 years in September, which is so hard to believe. We've been together for 10. And what I would say is that they're beautiful. My relationship is beautiful. I love it. It's complex. It's messy. It's fun. It's exciting. It's joyful. There's lots of happiness and love, and sometimes there's pain, and sometimes there's hurt. I wouldn't do it with anybody else. I'm lucky enough that I got to marry my best friend, and I'm so grateful for that because that doesn't happen all the time. And so I'm constantly appreciative of that. And my husband and I, we get on each other's nerves. Like, our birthdays are 3 days apart. So like, we're both Tauruses. We are stubborn bulls, both of us in different ways. And so we get on each other's nerves a lot. But we love each other so much. There's so much love there. And I have the best life. So I concur. If you can find someone and you have the ability to share your life with someone that makes you laugh, that makes you cry, that makes you feel, then you're living. And it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows and happiness. There's going to be sorrow. There's going to be pain. There's going to be frustration and anger and annoyance. And it's all beautiful. It's all healthy. So that's what I would say. And if anyone is having trouble or they want to talk about relationships or you want to talk about sort of anything else, you guys can always reach out to me. My website, atheatlong.com, or you can also access me through Nikki's By the Rule.
Yes, 100%. And I'm going to start doing, I haven't told you this yet, but I'm going to start doing pep talks.
Oh,
If you need a pep talk, like you just need somebody to tell you you got it.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Pep talks are awesome.
Yes, then
Yeah.
I am your girl. I'm tapping into my 9th grade self that was the one lone cheerleader that used to actually like bake cookies for the football team. Like I was that girl.
Oh my God, I totally
my inner city high school. And I was like, yeah, we got to do a banner. And everyone's like, come on.
That's awesome. I mean, I do pep talks every day.
Pep talks with Nikki. Yes, pep talks with Nikki. So yeah, that's
important. Coaching
coming soon. Or schedule.
Yeah.
You'll be able to schedule yours soon. So yes, that's coming down the pike at some point soon. Well, all right, Athea. Well, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you. And we'll be talking more about relationships, right? Coming up, like navigating relationships in these polarizing times that we're going through right now. It's like experiencing the whipsaw of the stock market the past few days. So we'll be bringing that one to you very soon. So again, looking forward to it.
Navigating finances in a relationship. Oh, that's very tough. Very scary.
Very scary. Yeah, we'll have to bring Tim back on for that one. And my accountant. Maybe I should ask my accountant to come on. He told us, he's like, you guys have PhDs in spending. I'm like, you know what? Shut up. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you right now. It's like, so bad. But lots of good stuff. All righty, my friend. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Take care.
Oh, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't see with the button.